As we dive into our breakout categories for the Denver Broncos in the 2021 NFL season, this was a great topic idea that was floated out there by Denver Broncos lead writer Eric Dalala, a good friend of the show, and I felt like it would be a great idea to interact with Broncos country on this subject matter. I'll share my thoughts. We're going to share some of Broncos fans' responses that they send in to me. Great talking points here. But then we're going to get into a conversation about the Broncos quarterbacks and rookies reporting tomorrow at the UCL Training Center a little bit earlier than everybody else. But starting things off, one of the first categories, best player for the Denver Broncos in the 2021 NFL season. There was a lot of debate on this. There was a lot of weighing back and forth. I think the common consensus with some of the responses that I received from Broncos fans, I think aligns a little bit. It's really hard to pinpoint just who that one player will be. But if we had to, and I've been very firm with this, I've been consistent with this, I think that Justin Simmons will be the Broncos' best player here this upcoming season. I think that with the additions that the Broncos have made on the defensive side of the ball, Simmons can really just be free to be that captain of that defense, to do a little bit more defensively against the run. He's still going to float the back end of that secondary, trying to intercept passes, trying to jump passing lanes. He's been very good at that. And I think that for the Broncos this year, Simmons will be their best player. Now, ideally, I think the common answer of what you would like, who would you rather have the best player be? You're hoping it's going to be your quarterback. But right now, so many questions with the Broncos. The easier answer, I think, would have been Justin Simmons. So we'll see how everything kind of plays out for the Broncos here in 2021. But best player, Justin Simmons. We've had some other good arguments and counters from Broncos fans, maybe listing Von Miller, maybe Cortland Sutton, maybe Noah Fant or Jerry Jeudy, some of the offensive side of the ball. Certainly, you can't go wrong with any of these answers unless you were to say the best player on the team is probably going to be an undrafted rookie free agent. Then I think you might be running a little bit, grasping at straws there. The top rookie, though, for the Denver Broncos, my selection is going to be Pat Surtain. PS2, like I said, I think that with the expectations for him, based on his draft position alone, it's very, very high. Not to mention his fit within Vic Fangio's defense and the plans that Vic and Ed Donatell really have for him in terms of being able to utilize him. You won't just see him on the outside playing against some of the number one receivers. He'll get some of those matchups. You'll see him inside the nickel and the slot from time to time. You may even see him covering the number 3 guy, depending on if it's a tight end. We could see the Broncos utilize PS2 in the role where he's covering Darren Waller. He's covering Travis Kelce, wherever those guys align because of his size and athleticism and the different combinations of what the Broncos have at cornerback and the safety help behind him. It gives Vic Fangio and Ed Donatell, I think, a little bit more flexibility to be able to go through and implement different scheme looks. And I think that's what the Broncos need to do. And like I said, the defense on paper as is, if they perform to expectations, I don't think you're going to have too much of a worry. But Pat Surtain, the expectations for him are extremely high. The next person that if I had to choose a top rookie, for me, I would envision Javonte Williams. Now, Benjamin Albright had said on one of the appearances he had on a radio show that Melvin Gordon's going to get about 60% of the snaps. You're going to have Javonte Williams get about 30%. We'll see how that dictates throughout the season because I do believe that Javonte Williams can overtake Melvin Gordon at some point, whether it's the middle of the year, whether it's early on, depending on if guys can stay healthy or not. I think Williams has a great chance. So I don't think if your selections were Pat Surtain or Javonte Williams, I don't think that you're wrong in that regard. But I also think you can make a case for maybe some other players that the Broncos drafted in this year's rookie draft class for the 2021 NFL draft. So eager for your responses in the comment section down below here. Our next category comes out as Breakout Star for the Broncos this upcoming season. I think when you look at the length of certain players' contracts, where they're at right now, I think the person in the most pivotal position to be in line for a breakout star-like season, I think it's going to be Noah Fant. And yes, having a quarterback that's going to get you the ball consistently and is going to eliminate some of those mistakes that they've made, whether it be Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater or Aaron Rodgers or Uncle Rico, depending on who it may be, I think that Noah Fant is in a good position this year to be the breakout star player for the Broncos in 2021. I think that we've seen him climb the necessary ladder. We've seen things in his rookie season, his sophomore season, strengths that he has, flashes of what he could be. And we've also seen him, I think, work on some of his weaknesses. Now, I think a lot of that, the weaknesses have to be being more consistent, not having as many drops. He had 5 drops his rookie season. He had 5 drops his sophomore season last year. He also dealt with a variety of ankle injuries that impacted him through the course of 2020. Now he's in a position, fully healthy. He's been putting in the work. His offseason training program has ramped up. He's realized the importance of how significant it will be for him to contribute in a big way this season, especially with guys like Albert Okwuegbunam as another tight end option behind him. he's going to be in a position to contribute. Now the Broncos may go to more of that 12 personnel where they have both Alberto and Noah Fant on the field at the same time. And if, look, the Broncos can form a dynamic duo, that's even better. But I do think for a breakout star, I think Noah Fant is in a great position right now to be the next big thing for the Broncos and maybe one of the next big tight ends in the NFL. We talk about the Travis Kelce's of the world. We talk about the George Kittles. We talk about the Darren Wallers. Noah Fant has the size. He has the athletic tools to maybe be able to do that. But now you got to carry out in production, productivity, the efficiency. I think that we have to see a lot more of that. And I think that the Broncos will, if I'm Pat Shurmur, I'm trying to find any way possible to get Noah Fant the ball, because last year when the Broncos had an emphasis on getting Fant the ball, great things happened for the team. They need to do the same thing in 2021, and they need to make that more of an emphasis going forward. So Noah Fant is my breakout star. Who is yours? Broncos country. The comeback player of the year. Look, this is tough because you have two really good players coming off of season-ending injuries last year, and Courtland Sutton and Von Miller. I mean, if you could choose two players, I think these would be the two players there. It's really hard to say who's going to have a better year than the other, but I think that for the Broncos, the impact, you can't really minimize Courtland's, you can't minimize Von. So this is really a tough choice between one or the other. I went with Courtland Sutton because I think that Courtland Sutton coming off, obviously being a younger player, you want him to be that comeback player of the year. You want him to have the advantage of being able to rebound quickly off of a bad injury like he sustained last year, because he's had a very important part of his career in Denver. He's in line to being able to play for a contract. Von Miller, yes, he's that veteran presence that you absolutely value. He's on a one-year deal remaining on his contract. He's playing for a contract extension. So you can't go wrong with one or the other, but I just think that I went with the youth factor here with Courtland being younger than Von. You want to see him bounce back in a big-time way because he is young, and there's a lot riding on his future with the Broncos based on this season. And I think that Courtland's an impact player that was obviously the missing X factor for the Broncos offense last year, because some of those downfield shots, you have to wonder. I don't think that Courtland Sutton's not going to come down with some of those passes that were either dropped or maybe through the hands, or maybe just a little bit of an inch off. I think Courtland Sutton's size is a difference maker to being able to maybe outstretch your arm a little bit to get a pass that maybe, a half a yard or half an inch away from you. It's a difference maker. You need something, go throw it up. He's going to go get it. That's what Courtland Sutton provided the Broncos in 2019 in a big way with Joe Flacco, with Brandon Allen, and even with Drew Lock down the stretch. And I think it'll amplify Drew Lock having Courtland back. So Courtland is my comeback player of the year. Eager for your selections on that one, Broncos country. But now let's get to our surprise player. This is a player that maybe nobody has an idea what they could be just yet, because there's no sample size, or there's a limited sample size. And this person came out of nowhere and became a surprise player. I think it would be safe to say that last year, the Broncos surprise player of the year was Malik Reed. I think that you'd be mistaken to not select Malik for that category. So who will that player be that comes out and surprises in 2021? For me, I'm going to go with Justin Sternett. I think that for him at the inside backer position, his ranginess, his size, his ability to move quickly, flip his hips, and be a tall force, especially in some of these passing windows on crossing patterns, I think will pay dividends for the Broncos defense in terms of maybe generating more takeaways or even just disruptions, tip passes. Because of his length, he can get his arm up in a passing window. He can deflect that pass, and it can lead to an interception with Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson on the back end there. Tip drill, baby. One of my favorite drills we always used to practice. So Justin Sternett will be my surprise player.